I'm a fan of Norse myth, and biblical tales never really made me excited. But the story I'm going to tell in this video changed all that. It is a story about Jesus, but Jesus as a boy. And think of a boy who has superhero type powers and then goes around using them in a way that could be considered frivolous. Now these stories can therefore be quite shocking, and it's no wonder that this infancy story was left out of the Bible, and these stories are actually called Infancy Gospels. So, welcome to the story of the Infancy Gospels, and welcome to Creckenford. Infancy Gospels are religious texts that started being written in the middle of the 2nd century. So 145 CE is the earliest date we can put one to accurately. And these Gospels tell the story of Jesus' life from when he was about 5 until he reaches the age where he's able to have a bar mitzvah. And that is the time when he appears in the temple in the Gospel of Luke in the New Testament of the Bible. Now there are 2 Infancy Gospels that I'm aware of, one named James and one named Thomas, although these aren't related to the Gospel of James and the Gospel of Thomas, and without doubt James and Thomas aren't their real names either. Now many scholars would regard, or many biblical scholars, or those who believe in Christ, would believe these Gospels as apocryphal, meaning they're false or were written by heretics. They do appear in some religious texts like the Septuagint, which is the Greek Old Testament, and the Vulgate, which is a Latin translation of the Bible, although the Infancy Gospels don't, and those sort of texts don't appear in the Hebrew version of the Bible, the one we're probably more familiar with in the West. Now, these Infancy Gospels were also very popular in the Middle Ages, and as such there were many copies made, and these copies changed over time, as most stories do, and so translating them to find the original is very difficult. But the basic premise of the plot tends to remain the same, and Jesus' behaviour within them remains the same. And that behaviour could easily be made into some kind of horror movie. So the version I'm presenting to you is the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. It is a combination of a few sources that I've converted or translated into a contemporary English, so it's more of a story. However, I haven't changed the plot or the key details. So let me tell you the story of Jesus growing up. One Sabbath, when Jesus was just 5 years old, he was playing with many children in a river by a falls, and the water was disturbed and muddy. And Jesus commanded the water to be clean, with just his words, no gestures, and the water became clean. And then he bent down and picked up some clay for the riverbed and made some pools, and from the pools he made some models of sparrows out of the clay. A father of one of the children saw this and went to Joseph, Jesus' father, and falsely accused Jesus of making clay on the Sabbath, something that's not lawful. And so Joseph went to Jesus and told him off and said, "Why are you making clay on the Sabbath?" And then Jesus clapped his hands, and in front of all those who were watching, he spoke to the clay models of the sparrows, and he said to them, "Fly away and remember me, for you are living birds." And the clay sparrows became alive and flew away chirping. One of those who saw this was a Pharisee, and that's someone who's a member of a Jewish sect, and he was so amazed by what he had just seen, he told all of his friends. Then one of the children there, who's the son of a scribe called Annas, he broke a stick off a willow tree and used it to break the clay walls of the pools Jesus had built where he made clay sparrows. And all the water drained out of those pools, leaving them dry, and Jesus' work undone. Jesus turned to Annas' son and said, "Your fruit will be without root, and will dry up like a branch in a strong wind." Annas' son instantly withered up, as though his flesh had dried up. Jesus and Joseph left, but as they walked away, a child ran into Jesus' shoulder, and Jesus said to him, "You shall no longer be able to go anywhere." And the child who had bumped into Jesus died right there beside him. People around saw this and cried out, Who is this boy whose word becomes reality? The parents of the now dead boy had seen what happened, and they blamed Joseph, saying, "You and your son cannot live here, not in our village. He needs to be taught to bless and not to curse." And Joseph spoke to Jesus and said, "Why do you say these things? You are making people suffer, and people will hate us." And Jesus replied, "If the words of my Father were not wise, then he would not know how to instruct children." Jesus then said, "And these children were not born in wedlock. If they were, they would not be cursed. They shall all receive their punishment." And with that, all the people accusing Joseph and Jesus were blinded. Joseph was angry with Jesus for doing this and pulled him away by the ear. And Jesus said, "You are acting like a fool, for did you not seek me and find me?" Zacchaeus was a teacher who was standing and listening to Jesus saying these things to his father. And Zacchaeus said to Joseph, "What a terrible boy! Why don't you bring him to school so that he may learn to love those of his own age and respect his elders, so that he, will want to be like other children? Doesn't he want to be with other children? And we can teach him." Joseph thought that was a good idea, and so he reported to Zacchaeus, but he did say, "Who would be able to restrain him and teach him at the same time? He requires far more attention than others of his age." And Jesus looked at Zacchaeus and said to the teacher, "I don't understand what you mean by that. For whilst I am here, outside of you, I am also within you. But you, a man of the law, do not know the law." And Jesus turned to Joseph and then said, "When you were born, I was standing beside you so that, Father, you may be taught by me in things which no other knows nor is able to teach. And as for the attention I require, he shall bear it whose it is. For when I am greatly exalted, I shall lay aside whatever part of you is me. For you do not know where you are from. I alone know truly where you were born and how much time you have left here." Those standing around Jesus were astonished and shouted to him, "What new and incredible wisdom! These words we have not known, never spoken by the priests or the scribes or the Pharisees. Where is this boy from? As who can be 5 years old and say such things? We have never seen such things before." Jesus responded, "Why are you surprised? Do you not believe that things that I say are true? Before you were born, and your fathers and your fathers' fathers, it was I who was created before this world." All the people around listening to Jesus were no longer able to speak. And he skipped amongst them, saying, "I was playing with you because I know you are amazed by such things, and you are insignificant to the wise." After a short while of reflection, people in the crowd were able to speak again, comforted by Jesus' words. And the teacher said to Joseph, "If you bring him to the school, I shall teach him letters." The headmaster took the class so he could personally teach Jesus, but Jesus was silent. And then Zacchaeus wrote the alphabet for Jesus and spoke out the letters, repeating himself constantly as Jesus would not respond. After a while, he became irritated with Jesus' silence and struck him on the head. And this angered Jesus, who said to him, "Do you think a smith's anvil, when struck, teaches whoever strikes it? I think you'll find it is not the anvil which is taught." Jesus continued, "I know the letters which you are teaching more accurately and far better than you. To me, what you say feels like a painful noise and do not represent the sound nor the power nor the glory one has if they understand them." Once Jesus had calmed down, he spoke the names of all the letters from Alpha to Omega very clearly. He then looked up at the teacher and said, "If you do not know the nature of the Alpha, then how can you teach the Beta? To do that is false. If you do know, then first teach me the Alpha, then I will trust you to speak the Beta." Many people were still gathered around listening as Jesus spoke to the teacher. And Jesus said, "Listen, Master, and understand the order of the first part. Pay close attention on how it has a sharp, lines and strokes across the middle, which you can see pointing and crossing over and meeting, going out, drawn aside, elevated, dancing in chorus, in melody, in rhythm, two-cornered, of the same form, of the same thickness, of the same family, making rise, balance, and equal measure, of equal length. These are the lines of the Alpha. Once Jesus had stopped speaking, the teacher was confused about the description of the first letter and said, "I'm so sorry. I have brought shame upon myself. Please take this boy away from me, as he is not from here. He can control fire. Perhaps he is older than Noah, for I have no idea what woman could have bore such a child, what kind of mother she must be. I just have no idea. He confuses me, and now I am lost, for I thought I was a teacher, but I am just a student. I must be cast out from here and die, or I shall flee from this village on account of this boy, for I can no longer be seen in the presence of anyone, for whilst I am old, I have been defeated by a young boy. But what can I say or tell anyone concerning the lines of the part of Alpha he proposed to me? Truly, my friends, I do not know. I do not know that either I understand the beginning nor the end. This child is something great. He's either a god or an angel or something similar. I just do not know." Jesus laughed and said, "Now let those who are barren bear fruit, and let those who are blind see the fruit of judgment." And then, instantly, all those who had been cursed by Jesus had their curses removed, and no one dared to make him angry from that time on. Many days later, Jesus was playing with other children on the roof of a house when one of the children, whose name was Zeno, fell and died. All the other children, apart from Jesus, went home when they saw what had happened, but Jesus remained there. The parents of the child came to see what happened, and on seeing their son lying dead on the floor, they accused Jesus, saying, "You pushed our child off the roof." But Jesus replied, "I did not push him off." The parents were angry and carried on shouting at Jesus. And so Jesus came down from the roof and stood beside the boy's body. He then said, "Zeno, rise and say if I pushed you off the roof." And Zeno rose up and said, "No, Lord." The parents of Zeno were amazed at what they had seen and praised God for the wonder they had just witnessed. When Jesus was about 6 years old, he was sent by his mother Mary to fill a water jar. There was a crowd of people at the water cistern, and when Jesus tried to get to it, he was jostled and dropped the jar, which broke. And so Jesus took off the cloak he was wearing and spread it on the ground. He filled the cloak with water and brought that to his mother. Mary was astonished. She was amazed, but kept what she had seen a secret in her heart. There was also a time when Joseph, Jesus' father, was sowing seed, and the boy Jesus also sowed a single measure of grain. From that his father was able to gather 100 measures of grain from him and give it to the poor and the orphans. And when Jesus was about 8, his father, who was a carpenter, was making ploughs and yokes, and he received a bed from a rich man who asked Joseph if he could make it more fitting for a man of his means. However, one of the pieces of wood Joseph crafted was shorter than it needed to be, and it was an expensive piece of wood. And Joseph worried, but Jesus said, "Don't worry, put the wood down and I'll make sure it's the right length for the bed." So Joseph did that, and he watched Jesus stand by the short piece of wood and stretch it, making it the same length as the other pieces. And Jesus then turned to his father and said, "Do not be upset by what you wish." And Joseph embraced Jesus and kissed him, saying, "Blessed am I, for God gave me this boy." As time went on, Joseph thought that he should try again and get Jesus to school, as he didn't want him not to know the letters. And so he took Jesus to school and handed him over to another schoolmaster. The schoolmaster said to Jesus, "Say Alpha." But Jesus said, "First, tell me what is the beta, then I will tell you what the Alpha is." This annoyed the teacher, who struck Jesus, and Jesus cursed him, and the teacher fell and died. And then Jesus went back home to his parents, and Joseph told Mary, Do not let Jesus out of the house, as there may be people around that may die if they anger him. And after a few days, another teacher said to Jesus' father Joseph, let's try and get him into school again, and maybe, if I flatter him perhaps, he will allow me to teach him letters. When Jesus went into the school, he saw a book on the lectern in the classroom, and he picked it up, but did not open it, and he did not read it. But he was able to quote the important passages from it without looking inside. The teacher sat down and listened to everything Jesus spoke and encouraged Jesus to speak more, to say more, for his words were so holy. Joseph went to the school to ensure everything was okay, because he was worried about the situation and whether the teacher would still be alive. But the teacher was alive and said to Joseph, you did not give me a disciple, but a teacher. And when Jesus finished speaking, Joseph took him back home. Joseph then sent James, Jesus' brother, into the forest to gather sticks, and he allowed Jesus to go with him. And while they were gathering the sticks, a poisonous snake bit James on his hand, and James fell to the ground, and he was dying. Jesus ran to James and did nothing but blow on the bite. And immediately the bite was healed, and the snake withered and died. When Jesus was 12 years old, his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. But when they made their journey back, they presumed Jesus was in their group of travellers. But he was not. He had stayed in Jerusalem. Mary and Joseph walked for a day before realising Jesus was not with them, and started to look for him among their family and friends. But they did not find him, and so decided to return to Jerusalem to search for him. And after 3 days of searching, they found Jesus in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And those listening to him were amazed on how he questioned the elders and explained the main points of the law and the riddles and the parables of the prophets. Mary, his mother, had been worried and said to her son, "Child, why did you do this to us? Look, we have been searching for you and were so worried for you." Jesus said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" And the scribes and the Pharisees in the temple said to Mary, "Are you the mother of this child?" And she said, "I am." And they said to her, "Blessed are you, because the Lord God had blessed the fruit of your womb with such a present of wisdom and glory of virtue that we have never seen nor heard before." So Jesus left with his parents and obeyed his mother's request to come home with all of them. And Mary treasured all these things Jesus did, pondering them in her heart. And Jesus continued to get older, and he continued to increase in wisdom as the years passed, and in grace before God and men. And I'll also add, he probably stopped killing people quite so casually. And that is the story, the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, about Jesus' life. I hope that gives you something to think about a bit more when it comes to Jesus and the Abrahamic religions. Until the next video, please stay safe, stay well. We'll probably be talking, go back to Germanic mythology in the next video, so look out for that. Take care. And this was Crackenford.